Okay, so for the second time, first one, I don't even know if you got to see even a few seconds of it. We'll see what happens here. So, again, the thing that makes me nervous about going to the backup stream is I don't have another backup. So if I get cut off early on, I'll probably try one more time. So definitely a YouTube problem. Hopefully I got one person in here now, so hopefully more will be trickling in. So, yep, had to go to the backup stream. So I'm going to wait a few minutes here, give people time to trickle in. Okay, hang on. Please go to backup stream. I got cut off right from the start. Okay, sorry. People are in the other chat going, "You're not here. It's just loading." It's like I've already actually ended the stream. So anyway, just trying to make sure people know. Oh, by the way, those of you who are in here right now, did you come from the link I put in the chat? It should be the same link, but I'm not sure if it's the same link. Sometimes when you go in from a different window, the link can be a little bit different. So that's why I said if that link doesn't work, then use the one that's in the description box under the other video. Oh man, it's so frustrating. Anyway, okay. Yeah. So Karen, you went through that link. Okay. Good. That helps me because what I did this time, why I was able to come on just a little bit faster, was I had the assumption this was going to happen like I always do, but when I set up a backup stream, but I went ahead and opened a second window or a second tab and had that more ready to go so that it would be a little quicker instead of having to go click, 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 click. All I had to do was set it to public. That's all, and then go live. That's all I had to do. So yeah, so irritating, but yeah. So this is the second stream. That's why, if you closed everything, you're seeing the backup stream. This is the reboot stream. So hopefully this one will stick around for a bit. Anyway, let me do a new greeting because I don't even know if my other one even went through. So hello, everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And happy Father's Day to any fathers that might be trickling in here or anybody that comes back and watches it kind of later on. So today, I did have a topic, but I think I'm going to save it for at least Wednesday because since it's Father's Day and I know a lot of people are busy and, hanging out with their dads and their grandpas and whatnots. And that's why Deb's not here. So I figured why not just do just a chat, a little Q&A. I did write down a few standard questions or things I'd like to talk about. If nobody has any questions they would like me to address right away, but feel free to ask questions in the chat and put them in all caps so that I can be certain to see them, especially since I don't have Deb here watching out for me and, posting links and whatnot. I need to set up some more moderators. I just don't want anybody feeling like overwhelmed if I give them a task and then having to try to figure out how to do it. It's actually pretty simple, but anyway, so while I wait for a few questions to come in, I'll go ahead and chat about a few things on my notes. So tomorrow's this and that video, I do a few garden updates. And I figured I'd talk about a few things that I didn't talk about in that video because, there's just a lot going on. See, how long can I keep adding fruit to my vinegar? I would say up to about maybe for the first week, 2 weeks tops. I wouldn't keep adding after 2 weeks for certain, especially if it's got sugar in it. Because when it hits that 2-week mark, that's when it's converted most of the sugars to alcohol, and you don't want to keep adding sugar, anything with sugar. So, if it's herbs, that's one thing, but if you're adding things that have sugar in it, you're going to prolong that process. So I say the safest time would be within the first week. So I usually only go maybe a few days. I'll add stuff in there. Unless it's herbs that have no sugar in them, then I don't mind adding more after that point. So at any rate, my peppers, my hot peppers, so that's the Chinese 5 color, they're starting to I saw some flowers in there today, opened up, like 2. But I'd seen several buds when I was out there yesterday looking at them. So 2 of them have opened up. That means it won't be too awful long before I'll start getting peppers. I'm pretty excited. I love my Chinese 5 color peppers. I think they make the best tasting hot pepper powder. I like it. I mean, cayenne's been one of my favorites for a long, long time. And I've grown cayennes before, but the Chinese 5 color grow better for me, and they're just so pretty. So, because they get the 5 different colors on one plant. And that I actually found I like the flavor of those better as a hot pepper powder. And I've made a hot sauce with them before too, but I really like them as a hot pepper powder. Not that I can't still turn the arnica flowers. Yeah. I was thinking Narnia. What's that? Well, I know what Narnia is, the fictitious place, but arnica. Yeah, the arnica flowers. So I'm pretty excited at how much arnica flowers. So as I've stated before, and in tomorrow's video, I'll be collecting. I'm not drying any of the flowers this year because I'm going to let all of them go to seed because I want to just collect a crud load of seed from them this year. Because I'm going to have to, first of all, those people, there was a few people that ordered the arnica seed that ended up not being arnica. I still not sure what happened. It's just crazy. But at any rate, I got to send them their free pack of seeds. Well, they paid for it, but I got to send them their replacement seeds. So unfortunately, I have to pay $5 in shipping. It's so, I know, since it's 1 pack of seed, maybe I won't have to pay that much. Maybe I'll just do like a stamp. I think I can get away with doing that. But anyway, so I got to get those sent off. And then next year I'll start saving up, drying the flowers, because right now I still have a lot of dried arnica flowers that I'd purchased. So I should be good until next year when I can start drying my own flowers. Sometime when you have nothing better to do, Google the topical uses of water kefir. Huh. Never thought about that. That's interesting. Hopefully, let me write that down. Topical uses water. I've thought about possibly getting back into water kefir. I don't know if I still have my grains. I might have froze them. Sometimes you can freeze those and get them to reactivate. But I don't know if I did. I just was like, I wasn't crazy about it. It didn't have a bad flavor. I didn't mind the flavor. To me, it was just, I just didn't like it as much as the sodas I make from my fermentation starter, which, by the way, I decided to start a honeysuckle one just for fun. There's one I haven't started yet. I've made honeysuckle vinegar, but at any rate, and honeysuckle cold infusion. But anyway, so yeah, the peppers, that's what I'm going to do with the peppers, is mostly dry them and then turn them into a powder for seasoning all kinds of goodies. And my snow peas are just looking so healthy, but I don't have any flowers yet. They should be anytime, should start getting flowers. I mean, they're not quite to the height that they normally are when I really start seeing the flowers break out all over. But it's been weird. We had this like couple of super hot days last week, but then the last few days have been really cold. And I got up this morning. I get up really early. I get up usually between 3:30 and 4 or 4:15 at the latest, typically. So a lot of times I'll go out and start watering stuff as soon as it's light enough. And I step out the door and I hear something crunchy up on my roof. It's kind of this weird crunchy sound. I thought maybe it was like crows or something. And I look up and I see ice kind of sliding off of my roof. Ice. We're right at the smack middle of June, for crying out loud. But I knew it had gotten cold last night, but the sun's out and it's warming up really fast. So at any rate, so weird. But I'm thinking the snow peas will start getting flowers and putting on peas here pretty soon because they're at that point where they're growing pretty fast. And one of the reasons I want to bring those up, my favorite things to do with the snow peas is sometimes I do like to dehydrate a few. Depends on what I want to use them in, but mostly that's something I might add to like a soup. Typically, cut them up and freeze them because to me they work best for, they're best fresh, used in anything, be it a stir fry, a salad, or whatever, obviously. But yeah, mostly I'll use them frozen through the year for various stir fries and whatnot. So, um, let's see. What is it? Want to switch locations? Oh, you mean no, no, I'm happy here. Sometimes I get frustrated and a little confused with the weather, even after living here for, gosh, I think it's going to, yeah, it'll be 37 years in August since I've been here. Um, but anyway, I am going to be fermenting some this year and I'm looking forward. I haven't done that in years. I keep forgetting about it. And I'm going to be fermenting some. One thing I didn't do with the fermented snow peas before is mostly I was fermenting them just to eat like I would kimchi. And I liked them okay, not as much as kimchi, like with either cucumber or cabbage. But I might, what I'm thinking about doing is fermenting them to try using in stir fries and see if I like that better than the frozen. Because even the frozen ones, even though they haven't been cooked or blanched in any way, they still aren't as crispy or lively as the ones you can use straight from the plant, which is the absolute best way to consume snow peas is fresh. So anyway, that's my plan this year. And let's see, the other thing I got started a couple days ago was quote unquote sourdough. You could call it sourdough starter. I use my fermentation starter to get these going. If I just feel like doing a little bit of sourdough, then I'll just start fresh. And because the fermentation starter is already bubbly and active, it doesn't take long to get it going. But I'll just keep adding a little flour to it each day. Today I added a little flour and some water and a little more of the fermentation starter. For that one, what starter did I use? The dandelion one. That's why in the thumbnail picture, you'll see the dandy. It doesn't have any fresh dandelions in it, so they don't look real pretty. But I used the dandelion starter in that one. And see what else I had, the picture of that, the picture of the honeysuckle starter, the picture of my golden oregano vinegar, and the mead. It's actually mead that I'm turning into vinegar, and it's not vinegar yet. It's taken a while. Yeah, I thought maybe in a week, but it was kind of sweet still, so it might take at least 2 weeks for it to go from being a mead into vinegar. It's an experiment. It's mead that I bottled up probably 2013, 2015, maybe 2015. It's been back there a while, but it was still good. So nothing I'm growing is thriving. I've been in the dark in the last 2 weeks. They tell us it's from Canada. Oh, yeah, the Canada wildfires. You see, well, you're Minnesota, so yeah, we haven't. They must not be having any fires on our side of the Canada. We're not in Canada. For those of you who are new, I'm in Washington State, but a lot of times, if the fires are on the west side of Canada, we'll get a lot of the smoke from there too. But it's been pretty nice. Well, as far as no smoke. I can't make sourdough starter here in my area, too humid. It gets humid. I hmm. Do you cover it or let's see. When I did a sourdough starter just from water and flour, I just covered it with a cloth, but we're fairly humid here. Well, on hot when it's hot, it gets humid because there's so much moisture from all the rain. That's what makes it humid because then the sun comes out and then, starts adding a bunch of humidity. I don't know what our humidity typically is, but it can be pretty high here. That's why it's really can be difficult to air dry things in the summertime. So there's one of those stupid bugs and I don't have my zapper. Zap, zap, zap. I was just talking about that the other day. I don't have my zapper. It's one of those little gnats. Sometimes they'll fly up your nose. It's so doggone irritating when they do that. I'm like, oh, oh. Oh, and I was going to talk a little bit more about cold infusions. So, since I have this, which is going to be a starter, not a cold infusion, but some people didn't know what that meant. But I do have a video. I didn't think to link to it. I didn't think to link to any videos in the description. Well, this video, especially since it's my backup, I don't have anything linked in there. But I did a video, I think last year, where I covered a bunch of different cold infusions, and it can be out of anything you want. Hey, Billy, happy Father's Day to you, if you guys celebrate that at all. But you're a father. I know that. Um, so but you can make it out of anything. It doesn't have to be honeysuckle. It can be one of my other favorites is holy basil. Holy basil I do like, but I don't really care for it as a hot tea. To me, it seems, even if you're real careful with it, to me it loses that flavor, and which I find disappointing. But as a cold infusion, it doesn't. It makes an excellent cold infusion. Sometimes I'll even mix it with some catmint, especially if I need some calming. Holy basil, Batman. Happy Father's Day, Tyler. I'm on a river then with the rain we've been having. I was thinking, my eyes are not great today. Having one of those days where my eyes are not great, but it immediately made me think of, I live in a van down by the river. And I I came across this. If you guys follow me on X or Instagram, I posted a picture the other day where it looks like a Van Gogh painting of like Starry Night, but it's like Chris Farley as that guy from Saturday Night Live. And he's got a van behind him. I live in a Van Gogh down by the river. It's hilarious. I like stuff like that. Fat guy in a little coat. Fat. I will admit that's like my favorite Chris Farley movie. I don't like a whole lot of didn't like a whole lot of his movies, but that one, um, what is it? It's not Black Sheep. That's the other one, which is so. It's the one before it. Oh, I'm having a complete brain cramp on the name. But the whole thing, hilarious. The whole thing with the ambulance, Tommy Boy. What he's doing the whole. Okay, he's trying to sell the brake pads. Anyway, that's one of that movie. That movie just cracks me up. I haven't watched it in a long time. I'm sick. Oh, because the fat guy in a little coat. Is that why you say that? Oh. Okay, yeah, the cold infusions. Remember what I was talking about. Obviously, peppermint makes a good cold infusion, but I usually save that for a hot tea. But it is so soothing. Oh, the mint that I typically will use is the mojito mint, since I get tons and tons and tons of that. So if I'm gonna make if I'm going to make a a minty cold infusion, I like using the mojito mint for that better than the peppermint, and then the peppermint better for a hot tea. So, man, we haven't watched that movie in a long time. Oh, and what else? what else? Oh, the orange mint and lemon balm. I like that both as a hot tea and really, really good as a cold infusion. So if you're wondering, well, what is that? Well, hot tea is a hot infusion. So the difference is this one's hot, you're heating it up, you're letting it either simmer a little bit depending on what you're using, or you're just pouring your hot water over it and then letting it steep. Whereas a cold infusion, you just shove your stuff in a jar, pour some, pour some water over it, and then stick it in the fridge overnight. And then so the next day it's had all night to infuse, and the next day it's good and cold. So if it's a good hot day, so yeah, that honeysuckle one, oh, it was so good the other day. I need to get some more going. Either honeysuckle, or I probably should do some mojito mint since I got a crud load of that. My chicks love that mojito mint though. Crazy little things. So anyway, hello to everyone that's been coming in, and if there's any other fathers out there that I haven't seen besides the two, then happy Father's Day to you as well. Any suggestion what to I mix my chocolate when I'm drying it up. I mix the chocolate mint with the peppermint. They're very, very close. They almost look exactly the same. If they were growing right next to each other, I wouldn't know the difference. The only difference is that very slight chocolate flavor that it has. But the color is the same unless it doesn't get a lot of sun. Then like I notice my peppermint over here that's kind of struggling between some of the plants and doesn't get a lot of sun. It doesn't get that dark color on the stem and on the other side of the leaves where it's kind of almost a burgundy color under there. It just stays green through and through. 'Cause it's just not getting enough sun is why. Yes, you can. So I think I said orange mint and lemon balm are mixed together are one of my favorite cold infusions. You can use just lemon balm. You can make it out of whatever you want. Whatever your favorite herb is to have as a tea, you can make it as a cold tea or a cold infusion. Same thing. One thought that hit me today is I love thyme tea, fresh thyme tea. And I'm like, I haven't done that one as a cold infusion. So hopefully, I'm going to write this down. Hopefully, I remember to get one of those going. I thought of it earlier. Cold infusion. I think that'd be really good. Some people like sage tea. Now, as much as I love sage as a culinary herb, I don't like it as a tea. I just don't. I tried it and I'm not my thing. Okay, I was trying to see what else we got. See, I take baking soda. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's one of the ways I take care of the fruit flies that I have, but now I just use that electronic swatter thing. I let them build up and this snap, 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 snap. And it like totally disintegrates them. And then the little gnats. We love snapping those things. It's a good stress reliever. What else did I have here? Oh, somebody asked me about that stain remover. I made that short. It was from an older video. And I'm going to actually delete that video because I have a new video coming up, especially when I realized I mentioned, because I don't say what that stain is. I cut that part out. That's that stain in that little short. That's from the CS. That stuff that I accidentally mentioned in my last live show. So you got to be careful with that stuff because, like, when you're taking it out and the drips, that black stuff, it can stain your formica. It might stain other things as well. I just find it stains formica. So my countertop right now is formica. I really want to go with either like granite or like I said, I still would love to have an oak one like Patrick made for in here, but I just noticed the formica is wearing thin in places and the color of it, because it's kind of a medium green color and it's just real. That's why one of the reasons why I had Patrick make that big board for me in the kitchen where I typically am standing for my videos And that's where I make all my bread on there. Anything I'm going to roll out goes on that. That's what that board's for. It's not supposed to be a cutting board. And because I noticed like the Formica's wearing, it's like that's just probably getting in my food. And so anyway, so coming back to the stain remover, somebody asked, well, could I use that on granite? What would I recommend for granite? Well, if you got a stain on your granite, try the same thing. It shouldn't be any different using the peroxide and baking soda blend on anything like that. But it's just like I said, depending on what you're using it on, you want to be a little bit careful because it can have a pretty powerful bleaching effect. So you don't want to leave it on anything for too long. But somebody said using it on their canning lids. I'm not sure what kind of canning lids they were talking about, but I immediately thought of the Tatler lids because the Tatler lids are white. And you know how you can tomatoes or salsa or anything red in them and it stains the bottom of them? I kind of wonder if that would work on that. I'm considering trying it. Let's see. Block rock. Is it the one you wave in the air? What is it called? Block rock? Oh, you're talking about for the bug zapper. I'm talking about the one that looks like a tennis racket is what it looks like, just shorter handle. But I did try to see if that one was still available. The particular one I have, there's all kinds of them out there, and that one's no longer available, but there's a bunch of them. You just keep it charged up, and I don't have to charge it that often because you're only turning it on for a little bit, each time you use it, and it works great, especially for little bugs. Like for bigger flies, you might have to zap them a couple times. Flies or wasps or something, but I don't usually. I usually try to chase the bees and the wasps outside. Anyway, so say a cordless dust buster. There you go. I just got some fly swatters made of leather and wood because I was tired of the cheap ones breaking. There you go. What, no rolled up newspaper? Do people even get newspapers anymore? Our town, when I first moved here, our little small town had a newspaper. Well, they still kind of do, but you have to pay for it now. You used to just get it. If you had a mailbox, you got a newspaper, you didn't have to pay for it. Now you have to pay for it. And it's like, well, now that they have their news online, if I really want to know something, I'll just go look it up online. I'm not going to pay for it. Yeah, I haven't seen a newspaper machine in over a decade. I don't know that we've ever. Well, I guess we did have some here down at the store, but I've never at the store, so I don't even know if they have any there. Okay, let's see. But yeah, that stain remover should work on any kind of countertop. And then another thing, what was it? Lilies. Oh, my daylilies are just starting to bloom, and so I've been dehydrating. I've only got my third one in the dehydrator because it's like one per day right now, but there's so many getting ready to bloom. I should have like quite a few. And right now it's just my dark pink ones. So I love daylily flowers. They're so tasty. And I love the way they have that nice crunch to them, especially at the base. But what I do is if I'm not going to use them fresh in a salad or even I've added them to stir fries. And I have a video, by the way, on the benefits of daylilies. But apparently some photos got put in there that weren't daylily flowers. There's some lilies you got to be careful because they can be toxic. I had a lot of pictures of my own, but sometimes I like to gather other pictures so I can have more colors and different types of photos in there. Apparently, a couple of the ones somebody said those weren't daylilies. Well, I'm like, oh, that's funny because I just put in daylily photos and then I just start gathering pictures and I'm thinking, I thought they all looked like daylilies to me, but whatever. I've actually eaten a lily that was not a daylily, and it was pretty darn good too. Didn't hurt me any, so go figure. But Anyway, so I dehydrate them up, all of the extra I'm not gonna eat right away, and then I've been adding them to my mixed greens blend, and I love it. See, I use that redundant phrase again. I add them to my mixed greens, and I love that because it adds a little color to the greens, so I get a little bit dark because it turns a dark, dark pink when it's dry, almost purple, and then when the orange ones, I'll get that orange in there. So it's just nice. So hello, Sue from the UK. It's sunny over there, huh? Because I know you're a lot like us. You get a lot of clouds. Cloud, cloud, cloud. Is there any sun in this country? We have sun today, but we didn't for several days in a row there. So it's kind of nice to have the sun back again. Let's see. Someone told me a blackberry plant that I bought and planted myself was not a blackberry. They insisted it was a black raspberry. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a black raspberry, but my assumption is they're probably very, very similar. But I wonder, well, are they maybe a hybrid of a blackberry and a raspberry? Isn't like a marionberry, if I remember correctly, marionberry is like a hybrid of a blackberry and a raspberry. Wasn't that what I just said though? That is just what I said. So black raspberry must just be a different kind of raspberry. Anyway, I don't know. I get them all confused. Blackberries and raspberries, that's what we have. Keep it simple. Well, we have the boysenberry now. But I don't know that I'd see fruit on it this year since it's just a little bitty thing that Patrick got me last month for Mother's Day. I think there was one more thing. I thought I saw a question. Are raspberries 50 years ago ripened to black? Okay, so yours probably are. That's probably a black raspberry. Maybe. I know ours are the red. They got berries on them, but they won't be ripe for at least a couple more weeks. Usually, right around the 4th of July is when they start ripening up, or sometime in the first week of July. So at least 2 weeks. But I see the berries shaping up. Let's see. Or does the black raspberry only grow on the east side of the states? That could be. Is that what you're saying? And that could be why I never, raspberries, blackberries. Oh, okay. That's where it's native. That could be why. Or if I've seen it, I wouldn't know what it was. I probably would have just thought it was blackberry. uh, but yeah, blackberries are definitely native here. The Himalayans, that you got to watch those. They're some of the best tasting ones, but they will just take over an area in a very, very short time. So anyway, the last little thing I wanted to cover was, I was talking that video that published the other day about weights and measures. And I did want to say that, yeah, I do understand the metric system is actually really easy when, it's just basically multiples of 10. The confusion for most people happens when you're talking conversion. So if you're trying to convert something from one, from the American standard, what's it called? What do we call I always forget what it's called. The one that we use in the States, feet, inches, and so on. When you're trying to convert from metric to that or vice versa, it's just called standard. I thought there was another name for it. Imperial. That's the word I'm thinking. I was thinking something, majestic, but imperial. Yeah. So some people I think thought that, well, it's not that metric's hard. It's just when you were raised learning this one, then it's like, okay, I have to know how to convert. I mean, off the top of my head, I do know that a liter is about 1.3 ounces. Is that right? Bigger than a quart. So, because I think a liter is like 33 point, it's 33 point something ounces, where a quart is 32 ounces. So it's usually the conversions that are frustrating, but metric itself is pretty simple. That's why I'm like, why didn't they just completely switch us over to metric? Because it does make more sense. And the thing about metric is that you can get, it's not like you can't do fractions of inches, which are used quite often, but a lot of times with your metric, and it comes to measurements, you're getting down to the milliliter, the millimeter. I mean, you can get down to smaller measurements that are a lot simpler and easier to get, if you're needing precision. I think the metric system is better. I mean, Patrick obviously uses both for when he's woodworking and stuff like that. And he has like different, um, what do you call them? The sockets and wrenches he has in both sizes, in the imperial standard and in the metric. And it's just depending on what he's working on, what he's going to need. So, what was that? I'm not sure what you meant there. So much, is that supposed to be must or much? Is wasting in my head that they told me I'd use. Oh, so much is wasting in my head that they told me I'd use as an adult, right? And then there's that stuff I wish I would have paid a little bit better attention to in school. Remember, I was a daydreamer. I was the one staring out the window, looking at the clouds, wishing I was outside doing something other than listening to a teacher drone on and ask me questions I didn't know. You're not going to have a calculator in your pocket everywhere you go. Yep. I do have my tape measure though, which I think has metric, and see, I love it when rulers and tape measures have both. It's quite handy. So, and then the last thing, going off that whole idea of measurements, I think is one, as long as you understand your basics. Like somebody was talking about how it comes to baking, and then if they're reading something in metric or the other way around. And I think once you have just kind of a basic idea, it's like I hardly ever use precise measurements. And I think sometimes people, when they're baking, cooking, they think everything has to be precise. No, it doesn't. There's very few things that have to have absolute precision. Very few. When I first started baking pie crusts and breads and stuff, I remember I was like leveling off my measuring cup with a knife. Everything was precise. Those days are long gone. I just like, ba-doop, ba-doop, that looks good to me, and start mixing stuff together. I think I should add a little bit more of this or that or the other thing. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone can claim to have a skill at cooking if they can't cook from their palate. There you go. But I mean, yeah, it's just like in most cases, it does not have to be precise. And especially like the whole palate thing. If you can't, if somebody thinks that this has to have exactly this much garlic, well, I can tell you right now, as an Italian, if it says X amount of garlic, it's never enough. Period. I'm just like, psh, psh, put that in. Oh, I'll throw in some fresh garlic, and so I got like the granulated garlic. Sometimes I'll have fresh garlic as well. Sometimes I'll also have the dried garlic slices. It's just garlic, garlic, garlic. There's never enough. And same thing goes with like peppers, or like a hot pepper or something. Yeah, you can't, you can't. Unless you like really bland food, if you follow most recipes, you'd be going, this is boring. If you tried to be precise, it needs more of something. Joann's went bankrupt. I haven't been to a Joann's in a good number of years. I don't even know if the one that was in the closest one to us is 60 miles away, and I don't know if they shut down that store years ago. I think they did, but I don't know. I haven't been in there so long. The last thing I think I bought there was that cute little pin cushion that's shaped like a chair. I love that thing. Question: do you have a favorite sun lotion that you make? No. You mean like are you talking about like for a sunblock or something or sun protection? No, but I do have a video on natural sunscreens if people need that. I don't use sunscreens. Um, when I was a kid growing up in an area that had a lot of sun, I never used sunscreens then either. I just turned really, really brown. But I never burned until I was much older. And then here, you don't get enough sun. It's like what happens here is you get so little sun that then when you do get it, everybody runs out in the sun and then gets burnt to a crisp because they haven't had that. They have no melanin in their skin. So, you gotta take it gently. And obviously, like most of you who follow me should know that sunscreens that you buy at the store, unless you know for certain are all natural, they're usually terrible. And unless you burn really easy, and that's something to be or easily, and that's something you need to be concerned about, I would say nix the sunscreen because you need the sun, first of all. Now, if you do burn easily, maybe you have Nordic descent and very, very pale skin, then you need to be looking at. I suggest you go look up my video. Let me see if I can, I don't have Deb here to gather it for me, but let me see if I can get that video. Problem is I have to click into a different screen and then I can't see what's going on. So let's see. Sun screen. Let's see if I can find it. There we go. It's 7 years old. Good gravy. So here we go. I'll link it in here. So that's the one on the natural sunscreen. And I give a few different ideas in there. Now, one of the things I know I talk about is the best thing for your skin is just a proper diet. Believe it or not, when you're eating properly and getting all your nutrients the way you're supposed to get them, your skin that burns easily, well, it could be that you're just very pale. But a lot of times it can also be that you're not getting enough nutrients. So sun protection happens just as much from the inside out as from the outside in. Wearing sleeves and hats and whatnot, obviously. Half my children are redheads, just use an umbrella and long sleeves. There you go. Yeah. But even things like coconut oil, if I remember correctly, it can have an SPF of about 10. And shea butter is either the same or more. The one, what is it? Is it raspberry seed oil or is it carrot seed oil? I say in that video, I think it's raspberry that has some of the highest natural SPF factor. Well, that's redundant. Sun protection factor, SPF. So first time I made cookies in junior high, I put in 1/2 cup, oh my goodness, of salt instead of a half teaspoon. That's a lot. For years, I thought I was a bad baker. So Tammy, obviously there is a point where it's like, you can't round things off too much, or it might be some very salty cookies. I remember I wrote a recipe up one time, I think even for YouTube, and I did something like that where I wrote like an extremely large amount of something. And it wasn't supposed to be that much. I can't even remember what it was. It was crazy. People are like, wait, I think it was sugar and something. They're like, that sounds like a lot of sugar. And I'm looking at it going, that does sound like a lot of sugar. I know it shouldn't be that much. I think it was like for hey, I'm doing a live show. Your dad is at the property. Yeah. Ah, well, that's where it's at. So, okay, see you, bud. Um, it was my oldest son, Ryan. Anyway, I'm getting so sidetracked. I use carrot seed oil. Okay, so carrot seed oil. Okay. Well, that's what I was thinking. That carrot seed oil was one of them. Maybe it's carrot seed and raspberry seed. Zinc oxide and shea butter. Shea butter is excellent. I do think that shea butter has a higher SPF than coconut oil. So it's really going to be dependent on the person and how much you really think you need. I'm a red. I'm a red 24/7. People ask me in the middle of winter if I'm sunburned. Yes, I don't sunburn as fast on carnivore. There you go. So that was something too that I think there was two things when I was a little kid. I don't remember ever getting sunburnt, and I was running around in the sun all the time. Half the time running around outside just wearing my swimsuit all day. Never get burnt. I just turned very, very brown. Very brown. And then when I got to be like an older teen, the first sunburn I ever got, it was terrible. And it was because I hadn't had a chance to really be outside much because it was it was the year I graduated. Went right from graduation to my aunt's. My aunt and I are the same age, so we were more like sisters, best friends. And I went to stay with her for a few weeks with my grandparents. And we spent a whole day at a park called Wild Waves, which was one of the first wave parks. It's now part of the Six Flags that's there, but it wasn't a Six Flag. It was just a wave park, and water slides, not wave park, water slide park with the wave pool. Oh my goodness. I burnt from head to toe. So you're in the water. Hadn't been out in the sun to let my body get a chance to start building up the melanin. It's terrible. We both burnt to a crisp. Thankfully for me, because of my skin tone, my burns very quickly would turn brown. So, yeah. Anyway, but like I said, I'll stress this again that a lot. If you find yourself burning a lot easier now than maybe you did when you were younger, it could be your diet. That can have a lot of say in it. So when I first came here, I was a little more, because we didn't get enough sun, and we'd first get out in the sun. I was a little careful about trying to put a little sunscreen here because this is where I'd be most likely to burn. But I haven't done that in years and years. So, especially after I found out how toxic sunscreen was, stopped using it. Because you got to remember, your skin is the largest organ of your body, and anything you put on your skin gets absorbed into your bloodstream. So if you're putting toxic chemicals on your skin, it's not just on, you might as well just be eating it. Pretty much the same thing. Yeah, aloe is good for a burn, especially, it's even straight from the plant. Well, pretty much that's the best way you can do it, because some of the aloe stuff you buy in the store, yeah, it's not just aloe vera. I don't know what all they put in there. Ew, blister, yuck, not fun. So I think that was all my little things. So if anybody else has other questions. Yeah, I don't know what's in lidocaine. I get to where I just don't trust anything. I haven't bought anything like that. I don't think I've ever used lidocaine. I've always just, for burns, used like aloe or something like that. A little lavender oil is good too. I mean, a little, like you could mix it in with something. It's very soothing to burns and helps them heal up pretty quickly. Like my Native American ancestors in June and my Irish ancestors in January. Right. So, because my oldest son that was just here, which of course you didn't see because he didn't step into the camera, but he gets super dark. He's already pretty dark because he works outside a lot. He gets really, really dark in the summertime, just like I did when I was young, because I was outside all the time. Now even when I'm outside, I'm usually pretty well covered up. And if I'm in my garden, I'm usually looking down so I don't get that much sun on my face because I'm usually looking down doing stuff like this. But um, both Ryan and myself, we get so dark that a lot of times people thought we were Hispanic and come up and start speaking Spanish to us. And when I was a kid, I didn't know any Spanish, and I would be like, and they're like, "Oh, you don't speak Spanish?" No. But yeah, we got pretty dark. Okay, Carolyn. Outside chores are calling. I get it. Yeah. I was able to get out there and get a bunch of stuff done before my live because, for me it's starting at 11:45. And so I got my watering done and I got some of my tomato leaves busted off and wrapped up around the ties a little bit more and washed some eggs to sell. I'm olive complected, yeah. Right. So that's me too, Thistle Moon. You can't tell in the picture. I look at myself on here, I just look ghostly. But yeah, I've got that skin tone. And so does my oldest son. My youngest son, not so much. In fact, when he was a baby, when he was really little, I had to be careful with him because he was white as a ghost. He was so white. That must be the more German side that comes from Patrick or something. I mean, he just I have pictures of him standing outside next to his brother. Some people would be surprised they were brothers because they were so opposite in color. He's not that white anymore, but he doesn't get as dark as his brother, that's for sure. I'm basically white bread that gets toasted in the warm months. So now that sounds more like my younger son, Justin. Uh, but Ryan's definitely more dark. He took after me a lot more. So can't wear white either. People think I'm sick. My one tomato plant is getting bushy and up to the second rung of the cage. Should I be breaking the leaves off? That's really up to you. Um, I don't know how tall your cage. I don't use tomato cages. I got a hair or a fuzz or something stuck on my lip. What's going on? Because I tie like I said we have those wooden slats that go across, and I just tie them up to that, and then as the plant grows, I just kind of wrap that tie around as it goes up it, almost like you know something that would vine. Um, and I just look for whatever leaves look like they're touching the ground, the base leaves, and I start breaking those off. And as the leaves get bigger and they'll start hanging down, I just use that as my guideline. Some people say, well, if you got to get the leaves off the ground. If they're touching ground, you got to break them off because they're going to cause um what have I heard? They can get disease or something from the soil. I'm like, I was thinking about that the other day, how silly that sounds. And maybe there's something I'm missing. Now I can see the leaves just kind of getting maybe sickly because they're always laying on the ground and maybe rotting or something. Blight? Okay. Somebody explain to me then what blight is. Is it considered a disease from the soil? Because this is something that I'm thinking, well, the tomato plant is in the soil. It's the same soil. But it's a bacteria in the soil. And the tomato plant is in the soil. Regardless, I still break off those leaves when I see them start touching the ground because that's what I was taught. And so I always do that. And on top of that, the main thing is that, well, that's the thing. It's like, why, if it's going to attack the roots, it can't attack the roots easily, is what you said. Sorry, my eyeballs are not working right. Okay. Anyway, regardless, it's still a good idea to break them off, whether you're worried about that or not, because what's happening, especially as the leaves get big, you got all this energy going into the leaves, and what you're wanting is the energy going into creating the tomatoes themselves. So now that my tomato plants are getting flowers, I definitely want that energy going into creating those tomatoes. So I still, whether you're worried about the fungus, the blight, or not, you should still be breaking those off if they're touching the ground, because they're probably either quite big or they're down there. And oh, the third reason is that as you break those leaves off, you're getting more airflow around the plant. It's going to be better for it. Especially ours, since I put a lot of plants in there and they're in a greenhouse. I need airflow in there. It's really important I keep the airflow in there. So I do have a fan on right now. So hot days, turn the fan on, turn it on high on really hot days, open up the door. And if it starts looking a little too crowded, start breaking off more of those leaves so more sun can get in there and more airflow can get through there. So there's actually three reasons why you want to break those leaves off, especially starting from the bottom and then working your way up the plant. But you also want to leave some leaves on there, enough leaves that it's also collecting the sunlight. And if you're in areas that get really, really hot, so since my tomatoes are in the greenhouse, there are still some days that it can get so hot that it doesn't matter if I watered it really good in the morning. Um, and even if the soil is still pretty wet, in the middle of the day when it's really hot, it can cause those leaves to start wilting, or cucumbers, same thing. And I find it, and I used to, people say you shouldn't spray water on top of your tomato plants. I'm thinking, well, tomatoes grow out in the rain. I just know here they don't do well in the rain because it can cause the tomatoes to split. But I will spray water onto the plants, and immediately the wiltiness, they'll just within a few minutes, it's like, that feels better, because the leaves will also absorb moisture into the plant. And so if you find on really hot days you have leaves of any of your vegetation that's starting to wilt, just spray them down with water. You don't have to soak them, just spray them down and then check them in just a few minutes and you'll see a difference. Yeah, I don't think my tomatoes have ever had blight. Not that I know of. Yeah, they're probably fine, Judy, but like I said, there's a few other reasons why you want to start breaking off those base leaves, for the airflow, and so that more energy can go into making the tomatoes and not into keeping those leaves alive, especially the lower, really big leaves. But you want to keep the leaves so it can collect sun, because that's the other way it feeds itself. Copper fungicide works. I also, I would assume then also neem oil, like, put a little neem oil like you can for roses. Some people say it works really good for the roses. I found the neem oil spray didn't do much for my roses. I'm kind of giving up on roses now that I have a lot of other great plants that are good for skin, that are also beautiful. Pruning is essentially just removing options from the plant. It can't waste energy on things you've cut off. Right. That's a very good way to word it. It's like cutting out all those extra little chores or demands that people want from you. I don't have enough energy to meet your demands. So there we go. We'll just lop that one right off. Oh dear. I use the name for fungus gnats on my seedlings. Powdery mildew too. It's frustrating. I get that on my cucumbers later in the season, like usually when they're getting close to being done. I've never worried about it. I've just I still get really good cucumbers. I just let it do its thing. It's fine. Nothing the leaves just don't look so pretty, but everything's fine. So, I am just one that I don't like to put a lot of money and energy into something unless it's absolutely necessary when it comes to growing a garden. Because I think about the fact that things grow out in nature in their own little environments quite well with very little concern about all these little things we worry about so much. Obviously, there's things that we can do to increase the production. So, this is why I'm going to tie my tomatoes up rather than let them just kind of grow all over the ground. On top of that, I really don't want them all over the ground, but that's what they'll do out in nature. They'll just sprawl. Um, Same thing with pumpkins. Now, yeah, pumpkin, squash, anything that vines. Yes, I prefer to have something for them to climb up to get them off the ground, and it will help them produce more. But when it comes to products that you have to apply, even the natural stuff, I try to avoid having to rely on a lot of that, especially if I can't get it. What if it comes down to a point where, I can't get blood meal, which I don't use that often. Well, I have other things I can use that I always have handy. So blood meal is something you would add to your acidic loving plants, like your berries, your corn, anything that loves an acidic soil. I only was getting it mostly for the sake of my blueberries when I still had them all in pots. Now my blueberries are all going to be in the ground. I'm not as concerned about it. But and just because something in pots isn't as likely to get as much nutrients, and so you're not always changing out the soil or whatever, so it's good to add back to it somehow. But I can still add chicken manure or chicken bedding to any of this stuff. So I'll probably never buy. I'll probably never buy blood meal again once I finally use up what I have, because it's something I don't want to be dependent on. Not that you can't probably make your own, and some people make their own bone meal, which is an excellent idea. I keep thinking that's what I'm going to start doing with the chicken bones is, drying them up, after of course, then again, is there anything left in them after I've boiled them for like 3 or 4 days? See, my dog eats any dirt we put. So does my dog, our dogs, because if Luna's here, she'll eat it too. They like it's the blood meal. So that's the other thing I have to be careful. I stopped putting it on my grapes because the dog can easily get into those. He can get into the pots. He would put his paws up there and try to eat the blood meal out of the blueberry pots. So, but usually what I do is put the blood meal in there and then cover it up with the bedding from the chicken coop so he couldn't get to it. Because I think it can make them sick. Um, anyway, so that's one of the reasons why it's like, okay, I'm kind of so done with the roses. I love roses, but I don't want something I have to keep babysitting and keep having to tend to. And oh, you poor little delicate thing, you've got fungus again. I'm gonna spray, and neem oil is expensive. It's not cheap. And even though you don't need that much, you just need maybe a couple tablespoons or so in a gallon of water. Still, it's expensive. And I just try to look at, well, then how about I stick to growing things that can have a similar or same purpose and get rid of the stuff that needs babysitting all the time. Because ain't nobody got time for that. So I've got honeysuckle that just is bursting at the seams. It's all, I've got all these plants now. It's like when I first got them, they were young little plants. So I was very, very particular about what I use those few flowers for. Now it's like I have tons of honeysuckle, and they smell better than my roses did. My roses didn't have a lot of nice aroma to them. They're just very it was very mild. I think there were hybrids. I just don't want something that I have to constantly tend. Um, yeah, fish emulsion is another one that's really good for a lot of things, but it's stinky. I have some of that too. I don't use it very often. You don't need very much of that either. But anyway, so yeah, I just try to look at, okay, I've got a lot of comfrey growing. Comfrey is a great fertilizer for the soil. So are most of your other plants. The dandelion leaves. You get so many dandelion leaves, and they start growing and shading out this, especially the ones I get that are massive. Some of them are like that wide and that long, and they start shading out some of my other plants. I just break the dandelion leaves off and then place them on the ground around those plants. They're going to add like a ground cover, right? And they're going to break down, and they're going to feed those all those great minerals that are in those leaves, going to go into that soil. Or the slugs will eat them and be more likely to eat the things that are dying than the things that are living. That's what I learned about slugs. I finally realized a few years ago, just kind of observing, because I do a lot of chop and drop, and I realized the slugs, when I had a lot of chop and drop on the ground around my garden stuff, the slugs would all go to the stuff that was broken off and already dying. Why? Because it's easier. It's like all is it the phytonutrients? What is it? Phytates? Whatever. That makes them a little more protected against bugs. Well, that stuff starts fading fast. And so now the slugs will just chomp right down on that. And then I realized, oh, now I know why God made slugs. Slugs and snails. Same reason why he made other crustaceans in the ocean. They're the cleaners of the land. That's why we're not supposed to eat them. Because your shellfish, those are the cleaners of the sea, so they're full of toxins. Saying goodnight, guys. I always people saying goodnight, and it's only, to me, it's only 10 minutes to 1. So good night, Sue. I've been thinking about dedicating an entire IBC tote to fish I caught that I don't eat. Like making like a fish pond, or just throwing the dead fish in there and letting them turn to fertilizer. Is that what you mean? Same results with fish-based fertilizers. I miss that. Darn it. Anyway, sorry, I'm trying to read. Ew. Yucky. So there was something, I know I just talked about this, the whole idea of simplifying the garden. I mean, I did a whole video on that, a whole live show on that. And I know there was a couple other things I was thinking of that I thought of later when I was outside working in the garden. And I'm like, oh, I forgot to mention this one and that one. And maybe in that one I know I mentioned the rose thing before, so I don't know if I mentioned it in that particular live, but yeah, I cut down one of my largest rows, and I need to pull it up out of the ground. So I've decided I'm just done. It's not that I hate roses. I don't want something that's so, what is the word? Needy, or high maintenance. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. But anyone who grows comfrey knows that's not high maintenance, and comfrey has so many great uses, internally, externally, and in your garden. And it draws in the bees, especially your bumbles, any of the fuzzy, fluffy bees, the flying, what do they call them? Flying pandas, because they're just fluffy and cute. They like those purple flowers a lot, and it draws them into the garden. Yes, it can be very invasive, but I don't always look at a good invasive plant as being a bad thing, because, well, you can just keep, like with the whole idea with the comfrey, chop and drop. There's always chop and drop. And my chickens, they love that kind of stuff. They'll eat the comfrey, they'll eat the borage, and it's it's kind of healthy for everyone. And so you can use that for a lot of things. And I just don't worry so much about a lot of stuff being invasive. Invasive edibles are a gift from God, in my opinion. Exactly. I was thinking that very same thing today because I'm out there. I'm gathering some more peppermint. I got some in the dehydrator. I'm on my fourth quart. Started my fourth quart jar of dehydrated peppermint. So it's a lot. So it's my goal is to get 4 jars of that put up, and it's kind of coming up all over the place exactly how I want it to. It's coming up among the sage. Well, it's a little more frustrating when it's coming up amongst other herbs and you got to try to sort things out, but whatever. I'm getting a lot, and it's not hurting my sage, it's not hurting the lemon balm. It's definitely not hurting the lemon balm, another invasive herb, but also has a lot of great uses. And if I get like with the lemon balm and the mojito mint, because those are just grow really very, very prolifically. I can hack down any excess and throw it in the coop and in the chicken nesting boxes. Sorry, they're nesting boxes so that it adds more bedding. It freshens things up in there. And then the fresh stuff, if I throw it in the enclosure, the outdoor enclosure with my chicks, they love it. I mean, because there was some growing wild in there. They've eaten it clear to the ground. So now I just throw some fresh stuff. I did for a couple days let them run loose out with the big chickens, and they were doing pretty good till they figured out they're small enough they can squeeze through my fencing around my main garden bed. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't gonna fly. You guys are gonna have to go back in here until you get big enough to not squeeze through there. You little poops. Just digging up my stuff. Yep, lemon balm is a mint. Absolutely. I was surprised when I found out just how many plants are in the mint family or the Lamiaceae family. So oregano, thyme, sage, even rosemary, which that one surprises me in one way because it's just because of the way it grows. It's not like other mints because it grows more like a shrub. And here the rosemary doesn't die back in the winter like all the other mints. It's like a shrub. It'll stay green year round here. I don't know what it does in other places. Thyme, did I say thyme? Thyme is a mint. There's a lot of things in the mint family that we wouldn't consider mints. But I can see oregano. It's like, yep, that looks like a mint. Dead nettle is in the Lamiaceae family. I know dead nettle grows wild around here. I've yet to see any, but I've never actively looked for it. But regular stinging nettle, the Urtica dioica, is not in the mint family. Some people think it is. It's not. See, I have killed more rosemary and mint plants than I would like to admit. Now, here's the thing, BlackRock, is that most mints love our climate. But rosemary, that's why it kind of surprises me. I think lavender is also in the mint family, if I'm correct. I could be wrong on that. But rosemary and lavender are so close. They seem so similar. I keep thinking of them being closely related. So wouldn't that mean the lavender is a mint as well? But they grow kind of similarly. But rosemary does not like wet, cooler areas. It loves drier areas. So I had to be very particular, and took me years to find the right place to grow the rosemary where it would do very well. And my oldest rosemary plant got flowers on it for the first time this year. Then the other 2 that are younger, but I've had them for a few years, they also got flowers this year. They all got flowers this year. I'm like, well, that's weird. But it's clear that the other 2 are a little bit different variety of rosemary because it has a very pale lavender flower, where the older rosemary has a deeper color of flower and doesn't get as many flowers on it. But they're all very healthy. I've eaten purple dead nettle raw. Do not recommend. Ew. So it's got little hairs on it. It's not a it doesn't sting though, right? It's not like a stink because it's not related to stinging nettle at all. Um, I'm wondering if like the little hairs might be similar to something like the way mullein gets or woolly lamb's ear, which I do grows really well for us here too. Woolly lamb's ear. So yeah, anyway, if you can't grow any mints, if none of them do well, that's a little bit funny. That's a little bit odd to me because there should be some, considering that I have mints that love, love, love our climate and some that really don't. So that's why growing it on the south side of the house, right up next to the house where it gets the least amount of the heavy rains through the wettest part of the season. I still water them a little bit, but I don't really have to give them much water. But I do water them a little bit, but during the hot part of the year, the dry part of the year, I should say. Not sure if I have dead nettle. It's not purple. I think the only purple it gets is like on the very it's I don't know if it's I don't think it's a flower. I think it's just the top part, the top leaves when the fresh leaves when they first start coming in. I don't know. I've never seen it in person. I've only seen pictures, so I'm just assuming. I haven't done a study on it. In South Carolina, I had to put cold climate things in the forever shade. Now I have to protect things from the sun by doing the same thing. Let's see, I put the cold climate things, yeah, okay. I had some of my rosemary for years, and I don't think I've ever seen it bloom. Okay, so thistle moon, just so you know, the my oldest one is at least 7 years old, and it's the first time I've ever seen it get flowers. Where the other ones are like 3 or 4 years old and they got covered in flowers. So I think part of it's gonna be age, the other part is going to be, the variety. So I never really worried about it. It's just always surprising you walk out there and you're like, "Whoa, this has flowers on it. I forgot these things actually get flowers." Let's see, I think it's my soil. I've been trying to make it healthier for years. I battle the bugs. I need to watch your videos on fertilizers. So, yeah, for us, it's just grass clippings that haven't been sprayed. In fact, Patrick's down mowing the other piece of property. I don't think he's mowed it yet this season, which means we should have a lot of grass clippings that at some point I'll need to go back down there and rake up as much as I can and bring them back to the house. I put them around all the plants that I can. I'll start with the ones that need the most ground cover around them to protect from the soil from drying out so much. Like this time of the year, it's the zucchini because it's not quite big enough to shade the ground around it, but it's getting warm enough that you got to water it quite a bit, and so it dries the soil out. And so I like putting the grass clippings around those, even though zucchini isn't known for liking an acidic soil because it's sitting on top. It doesn't hurt it. I mean, it's not going to break down that quickly that it's going to, burn the plants. Throw it around the corn, throw it on top of potatoes. Potatoes love it. But yeah, I'll put it around anything that really either needs that protection from drying out, the soil itself, or really likes to have the acidic soil. In that case, it's best too if you can actually mix it into the soil. If you have leaves and grass clippings, you have everything you need, right? So your leaves are what they would call like a brown compost, if I remember correctly, and I'll use leaves too. So in fact, neighbors are happy to give me their leaves when they rake them up in the fall. We don't get a lot of deciduous leaves except for from our apple trees. Well, we got the plum, but still. Um, and we used to just have like evergreens, and that's not something I'm going to use. But like my neighbor, over here, she has a maple, And then I don't know what the neighbors over here have, but sometimes I'll get leaves from them and I'll throw all that stuff in the gardens. Brown things are for carbon and green things are for nitrogen. That's right. Thank you. I knew nitrogen for the green things. And I was trying to think, what's carbon? What's brown? What's brown good for? It's carbon. I knew it was like the opposite, or, it's different, so that we are getting both. But we'll put a lot of the leaves also into the greenhouse, is another place, since that's where I grow my tomatoes and sometimes my cucumbers. When I'm growing cucumbers, that is. Let's see. Wood chips work in place of leaves too. Yep. We still have a little small pile of wood chips left from 2 years ago when Patrick bought home like a 10-yard dump truck load. So, those do work good as a mulch layer because they definitely hold in moisture. When I say wood chips, this is just like from trees being taken down and, bits of bark and all that. And then it was already partially broken down when we got it. So that was pretty good. 2 weeks, it's ready to use. Let's see. My fertilizer consists of grass clippings and weeds in a 5-gallon bucket of water. Stinks, but works well. Yeah, see, a lot of people, Thistlemoon will do that with, and whoever was asking, BlackRock, a lot of people will do that with their comfrey and their nettle, or depending on if they're growing one, the other, or both. Same idea. They it's basically a fertilizer tea. I don't do that. Some people do a chicken manure tea as well, and maybe throw the comfrey and the other types of stuff in there. Because to me, it's about trying to keep things as simple as possible. I don't even bother. I mean, that's not really how it works in nature here. You don't have buckets sitting around collecting stuff and then collecting the water. Things, in the fall, you have the leaves, and this is the way God made it. The fall, the leaves fall to the ground, right? They make this beautiful ground cover that we always feel like we got to rake it up, but the soil needs it. It's a ground cover that's going to protect it, and then it's going to feed it as it breaks down. And then you got the snow, or if you live in a place like ours, it's most likely going to be rain and very little snow, but either way, there's your moisture that's also going to then help break it down. And so I try to look at things that way more, because it does two things. It simplifies my gardening experience, what I have to do. And also, it's more closely related to just the way things are in nature. Now, that doesn't mean, you can't do, or you shouldn't do what works best for you or what's going to work best for your particular plant, because, like here, tomatoes would not grow in the wild. So obviously we have to do extra things. Tomatoes do best in our area when grown in a greenhouse. That's just the way it is. There's very few that will grow well in the open air, but most don't do well, even in the hottest part of the year. So they just do best in a greenhouse. Same thing with peppers. You might not get a single pepper if you try to grow them all outside. And so obviously there's some things that you're going to have to do that are against nature according to your area, because if you really want to have tomatoes, like tomatoes are super important to us, then I can't just rely on tomatoes growing wild. I got to do what I got to do to get the most out of them. So, and like Billy's talking here, see, forest floor collects grass clippings, leaves, and water all on its own. And then you learn through observation. And I really think that experience and watching things is the best way to learn, because you're seeing, especially for your own area, because, if you try to follow what I do, it's likely not going to work well for a lot of people that don't live in a climate like mine. Those people who are in the UK, maybe, but I don't even think they get quite as much rain as we do. But what was I going to say? But yeah, I mean, you gotta work according to your own climate. And this kind of comes back to the whole, why do I want to keep fighting to try to uh, grow something that's high maintenance and not meant for this area? I need to look at things that love our climate. Well, the honeysuckle clearly loves it. Uh, the comfrey, the nettle, these things grow beautifully here. And the dandelions get these great big beautiful leaves when not exposed to too much hot sun, and get some and only get like partial sun during the day. They get the biggest, most beautiful leaves on them. And we have the perfect place for that. So, and other things too, obviously berries. Berries grow good here. I mean, some people would complain, because where we live, the blackberries are considered a noxious weed. Now, some of you would be going, a noxious weed? Those are precious. I would never call them a noxious weed. But you know what? I love the fact they're a noxious weed because of the fact that if all else fails, we'll always have blackberries. E- we'll always have blackberries. Even if the blackberries here on this little piece die, or the ones out there next to our other piece of property all get mowed down by the city or something, there's plenty of places to go find blackberries growing wild, and huckleberries as well. Tyler, I was wondering what happened to you. Figured you're off taking care of your goats or making cheese or something, or building more gates. I remember you said that before. I think weed is a racial slur for plants out of the ignorance of its use. Right. I leave faucet water in buckets outside when I don't have rainwater. There you go. See, I have wild blackberries all over my yard. Then I planted 3 ever-growing thornless berries. Um, why have the thornless blackberries? And I will say, I don't know if you've tried them yet, because it sounds like you might have just recently planted those. I'm going to keep them as long as I can. They grow well. They get massive berries. The sad thing about the thornless blackberries is they just don't have the flavor. They just don't. I mean, they're okay. The reason I keep them is because they were a gift from my brother-in-law who passed away in 2019. And it's also kind of fun because they grow through my grapevine. So they're to that point now where they're coming through the grapevines. And so when the kids are on the deck, they can see them and they could just go pick and eat them. And we just let them have them. They don't care that they're not the most flavorful blackberry. They don't care. When I was a kid, I wouldn't either. And I'll eat them too. We do eat them. They're just better if I mix them with the blackberries that have more flavor, the small wild blackberry or the Himalayan blackberries. They have the best flavor. When I got my first property, I spammed a bunch of perennials I thought would do well, and what survived, I planted more of. There you go. So that's the thing, is it's kind of like with the whole thing with chickens. So you got chickens. Let's see that chickens get the big scary virus that everybody's being taught to be afraid of when it comes to birds. Well, and so what they do? This is the dumb thing. You got the government stepping in and wiping out a whole flock because maybe a couple of chickens got a virus. But maybe they all got the virus, but only the ones that die are the ones that you have to worry about. Maybe all of them are going to die, maybe not. But how do you build up resistance to anything? It's the exposure. So the chickens that survive a virus, they come back out the other side and they're good and healthy. Those are the chickens you want to keep anyway. The ones that died from whatever sickness, well, they weren't very hardy chickens. So how do you keep getting a hardier flock? is you keep the ones you don't wipe out your whole flock. You don't cull all your birds because a couple of them got sick. So, I've told the story before about I had a chicken years ago, one of my first Buff Orpingtons, that when she went broody, it was my first time seeing a chicken go broody, and I thought, let's try to keep it natural. I'm not going to try to break her of her broodiness. Let's just see what happens. She doesn't, we don't have, didn't have a rooster, so there was nothing to put under her to hatch out. But I just wanted to try it. Well, out of those 7 Buff Orpingtons, she was probably the weakest one initially anyway. Well, when I let her do the whole course, she came out of being broody. By the time she came out of being broody, her comb was kind of pale and shriveled up, and it was because she wasn't getting out much. And so then, even after that, I thought, okay, now she's moving around more, she'll do better. Nope, she kept getting sicker and sicker. So she was on the point of death. Because she was off hiding in places. I would have to go find her, and I was really worried. And then I grabbed Amy Fuel's book that I happen to have and was looking through there, and that's where I got the idea for the vinegar, garlic. I kind of made up my own tincture based on something she had, if you can call it a tincture. It was just vinegar. Because I had to be in a hurry. I didn't have 2 months to let something sit. And so I had the black walnut powder. I had the black walnut hull powder, and the garlic and the vinegar. And I can't remember if I had anything else to it, but I know for sure those 3 things. Just put the powders, the granulated garlic, and the black walnut powder, because I didn't know what was wrong with her. She got really weak from being, broody for 21 days. And then when she came out of it, I think it about killed her. And so I gave her a dropper full of that 3 times a day. Even after 1 day, I could tell she was getting stronger. And I did that for, I don't know for how long, until she was to the point where she would fight me so hard. She was so lethargic at first, it was super easy to give it to her. That's how sick she was. But when she started getting to where she was like fighting me and it was hard to hold on to her, I'm like, okay, she's better. I'll stop torturing her. And she ended up being far healthier after that than she was before all that, and lived a good healthy life the rest of her life. She was one of the first ones that ended up having to be taken out, because she was old. When her comb started turning purple, we knew it was time. But that's the thing. So the same applies to your plants. Why keep fighting things that are going to be, unless you feel it's really necessary, like the tomatoes. But I mean, I've got it down with the tomatoes. I've been growing them for maybe 30 years or so. But I've got it down. I know how to take care of my tomatoes. Doesn't mean I can't learn new tricks, though, to get even more harvest out of them. But the thing is, I know what works for me here. But I'm not going to keep fighting other things that aren't that important when I can grow something else in its place. And that's what I think we have to learn how to focus on. It's like, okay, it's like stocking up on stuff like pineapple. I like having, that freeze-dried pineapple I get from Mother Products, because I can't grow it here. I have tried that. It won't grow here. Mangoes, stuff like that. I like having some of that stuff on hand because it's a nice treat. And bananas. But the thing is, that's something that if we didn't have access, if that stuff wasn't coming into the stores, or through Mother Earth Products, or through Misfits Market, or through Azure Standard, I have to say, we're not going to have bananas and mangoes and pineapple anymore. And get over it. Because you know what? We get a lot of other great fruit here. One thing apple was never my favorite fruit, just because I thought it was more of a boring fruit. I love apples now. I absolutely love them. I love to eat them fresh. I love to eat them dried. I love to take them and make all kinds of stuff out of them. And the nice thing about apples is, because they they have a flavor that goes well with just about anything when it comes to fruit. You can mix them with anything. Mix them with any fruit and they're going to be good. Or some fruits might not mix together as well. So I can take the apples and I can dress them up in any way I want, and I don't have to worry about an apple shortage. Because, we have our 2 trees, and there's always trees out in fields somewhere that, where somebody had planted an apple tree and they never do anything with it. And now it's just sitting in an empty lot. And people just ignore them. And there's always apples to be had around here, just like the blackberries. And there's a lot you can do with those alone. Oh, and then my grapes, even though my grapes are sour, but I can make a lot of wine just out of what I grow in my backyard around my deck. A lot. I combine that with the blackberries, the raspberries, the plums. I'm getting plums this year. For the first time on that tree since we've moved it out here. It'll be the first time getting plums on it. So excited. Cherries, we're getting some cherries this year. Not a lot, but we're getting some. Strawberries. There's so much we can do with these things by combining them in different types of combinations. Oh yeah, the currants coming out my ears. I only have 4 plants, but they give me a lot of currants. I share a lot of them with the chickens because they love them, and we have a ton. And so there's just so much I can do with this stuff, and you don't have to, even though it's nice to have a lot of variety, sometimes you just have to learn to, if that's something you can't grow and you can't run down to the store and buy, learn how to make do with what you have and be more creative with what you have. So sick chickens, give them a peppercorn twice a day. Ooh, there's an idea. I don't know if I have peppercorn. I just know that my little concoction always works. I get a sick chicken now. That's what they get. And I'll give it to them a couple times a day until they're better. Or until they can't. They fight me too hard and say, okay, you must be well enough now. I got 1 small peach and 1 apple. I'm guessing these trees are about 4. Yeah, that sounds about right, Thistle Moon. We had a peach tree we had for years and years. And I think the whole time we had it, it only had 2 peaches total. They were both times, like 1 year I had 1. Then years later, I got another 1. We finally had to take it down. It's just peaches don't like our area. And I grew up in Wenatchee where, man, peaches everywhere in the summer. Oh, I love peaches. But I'll tell you this, those 2 peaches, both times Patrick and I, they were little. Patrick and I split them in half, and they were the best in both situations. They were the best peach we had ever eaten. They were so good. And maybe part of it is because it was our own. You're in the middle of Georgia. Yeah, I think you'll probably get peaches. Well, I think once it takes off, I don't think you'll have a problem with peaches. Chocolate covered bullets. What? What am I missing? I've killed potatoes hundreds of times. I'm still trying. That's interesting. See, I thought potatoes were something that grew well for pretty much everyone. I mean, I know you got all different types of potatoes too. Oh no. Oh no. That's too bad. Yeah, there's a lady out, I think I shared this story, but she lives kind of on the other side of town, does very much the same stuff we do. She's been probably doing a lot longer than we have. And the neighbor's dog had come over and killed all of her new layers. All of them. And didn't even care. Didn't even apologize. And so I think she called the police and reported it, and they made her pay. So she just came over and gave her money and was all snotty about it. And It's like, your dog came into my yard and killed my chickens. My my chickens that not only can I make money off of them, but they also provide us food. Your dog. That is nothing but a pet. Well, I shouldn't say nothing, but that's not right. We have pet dogs. We love our dogs. Okay. I know dogs are like family, but I think you guys understand where I'm going with this. There's even in Leviticus, God had instructions on what was to be done when what a person was supposed to do when they had an animal that they knew was destructive like that, or destroyed somebody else's property or somebody else's animal, somebody else's work animals. There's, he laid out guidelines. This is what you do. You need to pay back something in exchange for the thing that got destroyed by your wild animal that you knew was wild, that you knew was a killer. And like if it was an ox that would gore somebody and it would do it repeatedly, that they had to be taken out. That's just the way it was. That's a biblical rule. A man showed up at my door at 7 a.m. the next day asking if I'd seen their dogs. I told him, they killed 2 of my chickens. Their bodies are in the hauler. So what happened after that? Yeah, just whole pepper. That's what I figured, Tammy. That sounds easy. Just give them a whole pepper. See, I keep butting in on some of these conversations and I don't know what they're about. I had a young lemon that had 1 fruit on it when I bought it. The next year it got hit with a late freeze. It didn't bloom again for over 20 years. Really? Yeah, I gave up on citrus. That was a heartbreaker here. He cussed about someone in his house not listening to him, apologized, and left. Oh. Well, at least he apologized. But yeah, that's the thing. If I know here, at least in our county, I don't know if this is a state law or county law that, if an animal comes into your yard and is killing, biting, whatever, it doesn't matter if it's a bear or whatever, you have a right to take it out. And I assume that means, they're people's pets if they're not keeping care of them. I live in a state that if a human comes in your yard, the same applies. Interesting. Yeah, I live in Washington State. So it does surprise me about at least wildlife. That, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to look at my notes again just to see if there was anything else on there. I had nothing really super important. I think that was it, but I should probably get going. Oklahoma is constitutional carry. See, here, one surprising thing about Washington State, it is open carry at least. Not that you can conceal carry, but you have to have a permit. I'll put it that way. But in my thinking, the permit is the Constitution. But anyway, you guys know what I mean. So if you can buy it, you can have it open or concealed. The only exception is federal buildings. Yeah, well, because that's federal. What did I do? We went into a federal building. I never go into federal buildings really. We had to go downtown Seattle one time into a federal building for something. And I didn't even think about it because I have like 3 knives in my purse, always. And then we had to go through the security thing, and the guy wasn't gonna like dig through my purse. But, it was the first time I've ever been through something like that. And I'm like, oh, oh. And so I'm like, well, I've got 3 pocket knives here. And he's like, yeah, we need those. And so he goes, what I can do is you can either take them back out to your rig. It's like, I'm not coming back through this line. He says, or you can pay $1 each and we can hold them for you. Man, you guys probably make money hand over fist, but okay, whatever. I'm willing to do that. So I don't have to go all the way back out to the paid parking. Because, man, when I lived in that area back in the late 80s, there were a lot of places you could park that you didn't have to pay for. I mean, you weren't allowed to park in you couldn't park in a federal parking lot, a federal building parking lot, if you weren't there for that purpose. You weren't allowed to do that, but you could park alongside the road. There were all kind of places you could park and you had to pay for it. Now, everywhere in Seattle, everywhere you have to pay. And it's crazy how much they charge you. It's crazy. I'm like, man, things have changed since we've been here last. And you know what? I never want to come to this town again. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. We both did. Just driving through there, it was horrible. And this was several years ago. I'm just like, nope, I do not ever want to come here again. I used to love going downtown Seattle back in the day. Nope. I hate it. It's horrible. But yeah, I always have at least 2, if not 3, in my purse. So anyway, so didn't I do it again where I said I got to go? And here I am. Someday I might be the last person alive that has been to a drive-in movie. Well, that's interesting. Is there places that still have those at all? We had 2 of them in Wenatchee. And then I don't know if there was ever any out this way. I know there's none here in our little town, but I don't even know if there's any in the next big town over. Or if there ever was. That's interesting. I used to love going to me too. I used to love going to the drive-in movies. What was it? It was just made that you had your own little, you got to be at the movie theater, but in your own little cocoon. And you could run around. Loved it. It was so fun. I've got one that's like a necklace that my brother-in-law gave me years ago. I don't ever wear it. It's not one I would say is super gorgeous. I do keep it next to the bed though. Drive-ins were great, but I never liked getting in the trunk. Didn't we do that with somebody one time? How did we do that? I'm trying to remember. It wasn't me. It wasn't me in the trunk. Seems like we snuck somebody in somewhere. You could get away with all kinds of stuff. And you could bring all your own snacks and not have to worry about it. You just pack the whole back of the vehicle with all kinds of snacks and drinks. Of course, I did that when we'd go to the movie theater anyway, especially when the kids were babies. You just take in a big old diaper bag. It's just a diaper bag. Got my baby with me. Diaper bag. There might have been one diaper in there. Everything else was snacks. I don't remember if I told you guys about the time that we took the boys to a movie. Gosh, it's been so many years since I've even been in a movie theater. I can't remember the last time was. I think my kids might have been teenagers. Anyway, we took the kids to a movie theater, and before that, we went to Walmart because there's a Walmart. We don't have any of that stuff here, but if you want to go to see a movie in a theater, you have to drive at least 60 miles. So you go to the Walmart, you stock up on goodies and you have, your whatever, you shove them into pockets and whatever you can. You carry your mom. When you're a mom, you can carry a real big purse and put all kinds of stuff in there. And so Justin decided he wanted gobstoppers, the little ones that you get in the box. That was kind of a mistake. So before the movie even starts, he opens up his gobstoppers and spills like half of them. Well, how the movie, the floor is, right? And it was hard. There was no carpeting. So you could just hear these things roll. And we're like, great. We just gave ourselves away. My oldest son, he leans over and says, "Do I hear the sound of rolling contraband?" Oh, I laughed so hard. That was pretty hilarious. I don't think they really care. It's not like they're going to frisk you and say, "Oh, you snuck in gobstoppers? How dare you? Get out." But still, it makes for a funny story. Because we were joking about, okay, does everybody have their contraband? And we're all joking about it. So then Justin goes and spills half his box. Oh, even though that was a waste of gobstoppers, it was still worth it for the story, for the memory. I was always a driver at the drive-in because I had the station wagon. There you go. 12 people in a car for a drive-in movie. Oh, there you go. My parents used to do that with me. They go watch because usually drive-ins were always a double feature. And usually the second movie was the one that was more not so kid friendly. And so I was supposed to sleep in the back of the station wagon. But I couldn't sleep. I'd be peeking over the top. My parents were watching some horror movie. The second one was some horror movie. And I don't know what it was. I did happen to peek just in time to see something rather violent. It had something to do with a knitting needle in somebody's temple. Kind of like JL from the Old Testament. Except for that was a stake. Right? Be a JL. My parents went to see a Ghostbusters movie on a bunch of their anniversaries. On a bunch of their anniversaries? Mom was famous for having a purse big enough to sneak in a bucket of KFC. Oh my goodness. Oh. You guys are making me stay. My parents put a sleep mattress in the back seat and we fell asleep after the cartoon. I just couldn't fall asleep. I was never one that could fall asleep that easy. And here I was, it's like I'd be laying there listening to what's going on? What is it? I gotta see. Are you looking? Are you sleeping? Yes. No. Just don't slip candy bars in your socks. They just don't. They don't just melt in your hands. Ew. That would be fun. Lots of fun. But see, again, fun memories. There was a feature at our drive-in that was sold out with no chance for a ticket. Boxcar Bertha and pickup on 101. High school guys were talking about it for weeks. Not me. Oh boy. My dad owned an arcade with my uncle. That's how he met my mom. Anyway, for reals, guys. Stop keeping me on here. Stop forcing me to stay. Oh, by the way, somebody asked me a question again today. Guess what the question was? If you haven't written a book yet, you really should. It wasn't really a question, it was a statement. They were nice about it though. The 80s was peak humanity. Anyway, for reals. Okay. So I don't know that I'll make a separate standalone video out of this. It was just a time to get on here and chat and be goofy and have fun and say happy Father's Day to all the fathers. You're just waiting for us to say something worth listening to. Of course. You guys are always saying something that either makes me laugh or draws me in. I mean, I figured it would be kind of more fun to try to pay more attention to you guys this time, because usually I have a topic and I'm going on and on about this topic, and then I miss most of the comments. And then I feel bad because I didn't interact more. I feel guilty. So anyway, gosh, but even so, I've been on here for almost 2 hours. So for reals, and I mean it this time. I mean it. Thanks everyone for coming in here. Hope you have a great rest of your day and a great week to come, and that you guys have an enjoyable sunny weather that you can get out in your garden and work if you have a garden, and just, yeah, get some sun. Love y'all. Thanks for stopping in. Take care and God bless.